Hello and welcome to a new Tuesday Treadmill Talks. As of now, I'm officially at 200 subscribers. Yeah! Talk about that later in the video. So let's begin with fitness. Actually, I think I lost a little half pounds. So I'm more like 199.3, so I lost 0.3 pounds or so. Not that big of a deal, but you know, it is what it is. Just been doing more and more of the same sort of thing, you know, so yeah. Alright, let's begin with... So I hit 200 subscribers last night during the podcast. Yeah. Craziness. Which, by the way, was probably one of the best episodes of the podcast ever. I didn't even swear that much. But there's a lot of good flow, good ideas. Matt was on there, of course, so the views doubled. Just a real fun podcast to make. It might be my favorite one I've ever done for this podcast. Maybe my favorite podcast episode I've ever been part of, in all honesty. So, yeah, that happened. So I should discuss what I'm going to do for my 200 subs. So I don't think I'm going to do a contest to 250, because I need to save my money for Gen Con. I've been spending a whole lot lately, and I just can't do that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Q&A. Whether I do a live Q&A or sort of you guys mail me questions ahead of time, I'm not sure. I'll make a separate video and we'll talk about this. Next, I think that'll pretty much be it. I either do a 250 contest or 300. I didn't expect to hit 200 this fast, so I was caught unprepared. Anyway, what is next? What I've been reading. Well, to tell you the truth, I slacked off my comic book reading, my single issue reading, to the point where I have 3 weeks of comics stacked up that I need to read. The only thing I've even touched in the last couple weeks to that sort of thing for the next comic book throwdown was Heavy Metal 280, and I'm not even done with that. I think I have at least another day of reading that to go. I have at least 3 digital issues, because last week we only had 3 things come out. No, the week before we had 3 issues come out. Last week for me it was 2 issues. This week is going to be 3, maybe 4. I'm not sure yet. But yeah. Things are ending. This week it'll be Obi-Wan and Anakin ends. Thank God. I'm getting close to dropping all of the Marvel Star Wars except for Poe Dameron. Why? Because I don't really enjoy it. I won't drop Darth Vader because that ends at 25, and I'm just gonna bite the bullet and buy the last 10 issues or so of that. But still, it's just not fun to read. It's really tedious. But next week, Predator Life and Death ends, which that's going to be interesting. That's finally happening. The end. Oh boy. I'm actually excited to see how that ends. I'm excited to talk about it. But I don't know what else is coming out next week. I looked at the 2 weeks ahead of me, and I'm like, okay, I just got a huge comic book throwdown to do this week. I know that next week we have the Ewoks Droids Omnibus comes out from Marvel. I'm just going to buy it. It'll probably be one of my last hardcovers before Gen Con. I think I'm going to get maybe 2 others. because I got something gigantic for this coming haul. And I mean huge. Oh, and because my finals are... I get done around 2. So I'm going to run to the store, the shop, right before I go home. And I'm going to pick up some stuff because I really want to get the DC Rebirth one-shot. Apparently, I think it's supposed to be really big. And it's $2.99. I want to see where the DC Rebirth is going before I bite the bullet and I buy all the DC Rebirth one-shots. Needless to say, these next couple months are going to be very not buying back issue oriented. It's going to be a lot more saving for Gen Con and buying the DC Rebirth and buying whatever. But you see, things are shaping up in my pull list so that way I don't need to spend extra money on things. I don't need to do blah 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 things because things are ending. Of course, Predator Life and Death will switch to Prometheus Life and Death, I think, soon. And then probably Aliens Life and Death. It's just going to be one of those events. Which, you know, I'm completely okay with. I liked Fire and Stone, and I am good for any sort of event like that. I loved Fire and Stone, in fact. I can't recommend it enough. I know I gush about it here on Tuesday Treadmill Talks all the time, but it was such a good event, and it shouldn't have been, but it was. Every single part of that event was good. The way it was released was terrible, though. And with Life and Death, I think they're doing it right. They're getting one miniseries done, then another one, then another one, then another one, or whatever they're going to do. And I think it is going to be well worth everyone's time to read. At least the Predator one's just been really entertaining. It's been one of my things I read immediately when I get home every day from the shop. So yeah. So let's move on to what I have been reading, because I haven't just not been reading. I got so many things started right now, it's not even funny. I talked about this a little bit on the podcast. Still reading Daredevil by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson. That omnibus. About an eighth of the way through it. Really enjoying that. I finished Saga of the Swamp Thing, so I actually finished something within the last week or so. I think I finished it right after the last Tuesday Treadmill Talks. That was phenomenal. What else have I been reading? Been reading Invincible. I'm on issue 9 now, I think. Maybe 10. Something like that. I call it my light reading because it's just so light and I just get through it so quickly that I'm loving Invincible. I can't believe I didn't read this sooner. It is my kind of superhero book that sort of pays homage and a slight parody. It's not Kick-Ass where it's not funny but tries to be. Invincible is just a fun read. It can be very violent, but it isn't always. I know that changes. I know the series grows up, but right now is exactly what I want from a superhero comic. So yeah. Then I'm reading Crisis on Infinite Earths. I read the first issue. It's really wordy. And I know that was a product of the time, but I think it's more wordy than a lot of the stuff of that era that I've been reading. So I'm also reading the Marvel Star Wars stuff. Which, by the way, if you haven't read that, you need to read that. It is some of the best comic book writing of that time. Literally. It is some of the best. I'm reading probably one of the best movie comic book adaptations I've ever read. The original Star Wars, which is phenomenal. You guys just need to read it. Well worth your time. Also, novel-wise, I'm reading 2 novels right now. I'm reading a young adult novel, Star Wars Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, because I have New Republic Bloodline ordered. It's coming in. Yes, I waited a week after the Rebel Raid, which is why it's late, because it went out of stock, because it's Claudia Gray. So I got that from Sci-Fi Book Club, so it's hopefully going to be in the nice book club size hardcover, which I prefer. And I'm also reading Aliens Earth Hive by Steve Perry. I think what I'm going to do with my reading is, well, since school ends tomorrow, I'm going to do all my comic book throwdown stuff. Some of it today. I'll do some of my digital stuff today. And maybe try to page through heavy metal quickly. It's just not happening usually. I've only read, since I started picking up heavy metal about 4 issues ago, I've only read 1 in 1 day. And that was last issue, and that was because some of the stories were so bad I had to skip them. Yeah, I will admit that there are a few stories that I skip no matter what because they're a serial, and I haven't read the beginning of it, and you need to read the beginning of it in order to understand the whole thing. There's one that I wish I could read, because it seems to be really good. Everyone totes it up to be really good, but I can't read it because I have no idea what's going on. Because I missed the first 4 or 5 parts of it. Then there's a Romeo and Juliet one that I just think is terrible. I seriously do. And I honestly got the impression that Grant Morrison, who now edits, I think he's editor-in-chief of Heavy Metal now. Yeah, Grant Morrison runs Heavy Metal. I think it's actually a perfect fit, but I'll talk about that more in Comic Book Throwdown. But he can't give off the impression that I don't think he particularly likes it either. But it's getting close to the end. I tend to skim that one because I know I've read Romeo and Juliet before. And so I know what's going to happen and what has happened pretty much. So, yeah. Been reading that. I don't like it. One of my favorite stories was a 2-parter that ended. So, Grant Morrison wrote a funny one that's now going to be a serial in there. That was fun so far. And there's a really creepy one that I liked. But yeah, I get into the serial ones that I haven't read the part of it because I don't own the issues, and then that's just tedious. So you have to skip it. But there's so much to heavy metal. That's why I love it. Is that because for what heavy metal is known as a comic book magazine that just has naked girls and tits everywhere. And granted, some stories are gratuitously nude for no apparent reason, and there's sex everywhere. It's just fucking porn. But there's some that are just so good, and they're so unconventional that they could only come out in heavy metal. I don't think some of you might understand that. It's just, there's just certain things that comic book companies won't print. Even in this day of indie stuff. Some things would only come out in heavy metal. And I think that it's going to be more and more like that with Grant Morrison being in charge of heavy metal. I think we're going to see a lot more. I think we're going to see better quality writing and better quality everything because Grant Morrison is in charge. Not to say I didn't like the last team. I love the last team. But I think Grant Morrison is going to just the quality's gonna skyrocket. And plus, Grant Morrison's actually writing stuff for this too, which I like. I really do like. It's really entertaining to have Grant Morrison doing something sort of serialized like this again. But then again, you're talking to someone who loves his Batman run and his Batman and Robin run. The whole Batman Inc. thing. I loved it back in the day, so yeah. That about does it for Tuesday Treadmill Talks today. I talked quite a bit. Well, if you have a comment, leave it in the comments down below. Thumbs up, thumbs down, I don't care. There's not going to be a link to my Twitter or Instagram. But actually, comment down below what you want for my 200 subscribers celebration. Whether you want a live Q&A or just mail me the questions Q&A, and I will do it after pre-reading them. So, anyway, guys, have a nice day.